2 series left to go here for day number 4 of the mid-season brawl as we continue down the line. Our next match is going to be Soul Torturers going up against RED Canids. And RED Canids, we're going to have a double dose of those guys in just a few moments' time, as later on they will go up against Team Dignitas. I am joined here by Trixler, Kaldor, and Fan. Europe outnumbering Fan 3-1 here on the desk to start. And overall, what we've seen so far from today has been good. Now we're going to see how Soul Torturers are going to go up against RED Canids, because both of these teams need some good points to be able to try and get themselves into that 4th spot, it would seem.
Yeah, and also RED Canids have been improving day by day. You can literally see their progress as a team. So I'm excited to see not only this match, but the next match they'll be in and see what they've had in store for us from the last 24 hours.
I mean, they've definitely brought some interesting things to the drafts as well. Some more unusual things compared to what we used to from day to day to day. So can RED Canids kind of continue that on and put themselves in a good spot?
I think they can if they focus. They had in nearly every single series they played so far at least one game where you could argue this was theirs to win, and then they lost it in the end by a bit of poor execution or in a fight having a little bit less coordination. And after the games, we were pretty vocal about that. They were usually quite angry and saying like, guys, we had this, why did we let that slip out of our hands again? If they, in those final moments, focus a bit better, I think they can definitely take games off teams, but so far they haven't even won a map.
No, they haven't. It has been a rough road for RED Canids here, Fan. What can you identify from what you've seen so far from them that they could potentially work on a little bit and then try and improve for these next 2 series?
I mean, as far as the RED Canids goes, I've said this the other days as well, so their tank Typhex is making a lot of plays, in my opinion. He's finding a lot of openings, even against better teams. You know, he's finding the engages, getting them into the game or ahead sometimes, but they kind of struggle in the mid to late game, especially in terms of just mechanical team fighting and stuff of that sort. So if they can just clean it up a little bit, they can definitely start taking games off Soul Torturers.
Well, on the other side, we do have Soul Torturers, a team that has caused upsets here and there. We already saw them taking the one map that they did, of course, with the good old, well, you know what. And here they are, as we'll see how they're just going to play out. There we go. There's the reaction I wanted. Perfect, Hikari. I was waiting for it. I was like, is he going to?
You cannot not like these guys.
Yeah.
This is insane. They're such an awesome team. They're so likable, and I have to say I'm a massive, massive fan of Zola, not only because of the Penguin, but also the Zeratul that guy plays. I am just absolutely in love with this. We are all talking about that one Void Prison against Temple, but let's face it, that solo Liming kill that he got in the same game was even more amazing. There's the Penguin right there. Look at that.
I think that's the theme of the Soul Torturers. They will always, in a series, give you something to be proud about. There's the Penguin.
That is Zola.
There he is.
There he is.
Cuteness overload.
He's a stuffed animal, not a real person.
He is actually a penguin, correct. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no, never mind. Hello, Zola.
Oh, the reveal!
Oh, we knew it. We didn't know it all along. Oh,
it's shocking news.
You cannot look at this and not smile. These guys are just awesome.
Yeah. Very, very fun. Finally rounding things out, of course. Scroll.
Oh, he's trying to rival Smexy.
Yeah.
Come on, keep
I like it. I like
He's doing all right.
He's getting there.
Can he handle it? No, he broke.
He gave up.
Ah,
Oh well.
that's not how you beat this there.
No, not at all. We could set up a match later on. We could get Smexy. And although, to be fair, Scroll did do rubbish then, just so.
Yeah.
Oh well. So, getting back on point here, let's take a look at the other team, of course, in RED Canids, that we're going to be having 4 2 series in a row. There's got to be something. There's got to be.
Where's the flag? Oh, they're dancing! Oh. Look at him! Impressive! That guy does push-ups. I can tell. Yeah. I can tell.
Oh,
anything?
God.
Oh, Vieira's chilling.
That's in the day. He's ready to win the video games.
Yes.
But yeah, RED Canids are a team that continue to prove over and over again. This is a guy that actually I enjoy watching, Vieira. He's been doing a pretty subtle job in being in the engagements when it needs to be. Yeah. I think there needs to be a little bit more trust in this team. I mean, obviously they're new in there. They've mentioned their weaknesses, but there are moments where you're literally watching them dance around waiting for a call. And at some point you have to trust your own game intuition and your own game sense and go in on a play and then talk about it afterwards. And I would love to see more of that from this team, especially as they continue to grow throughout the entire week.
We saw a lot more flexible ranged options from them compared to some other teams. They have mixed in the Gul'dan, they have mixed in the Cassia, and tried to have a bit more of a traditional rounded composition compared to like the absolute top tier of this tournament. So do you think we'll be seeing more of that again, or just kind of falling more in line with everything else that's been going on here at this tournament?
What I really liked for them was when they tried to play the double support Vala.
Yes.
And that Shredder on that. They had a lot of damage output with it and it looked very stable. So I would like to see that from them. Overall, I would just like them to stick within their comfort zone because they had some really close games and play since I believe them to be the underdog in this setup. And for me, the drafts, that's what it really comes down to, especially when we're talking about Zola and his Zeratul. After what he pulled off against other teams, I really think this needs to be one of the focus points for the RED Canids, that they're just saying, hey, get them away from the heroes that Soul Torturers really excel at.
Cursed Hollow is going to be our first map, and that second one was Towers of Doom? I
believe it was.
I just saw something, but it flashed.
We'll go with a
past me.
hard yes. You got to be confident on TV. That's
Absolutely not if it's the wrong map. I need to teach you a thing.
I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
Let's get into the draft game
so
number
you just
one.
doubled down on whatever you're not quite sure of? Is that how we ended up with Murky and Gazlo? Did we finally solve the puzzle?
Yeah, of course. He's like, I've just got to be confident.
It all started
first, I'll keep playing
You
it.
know how that started? He never wanted to talk about Murky. He wanted to talk about Murden, accidentally said the wrong name, and was just like, oh my god, I have to go all in on it.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
We solved the mystery.
The origin stories.
All right, time for draft number one here between these two teams. Zeratul gets taken out. Scary stuff now.
I like the ban. I think it's all about mitigating those special moments that the Soul Torturers brings out. Zeratul is a great way to bring it down. Now, thinking about the second ban here, I wouldn't mind seeing an Uther ban. I want to see RED Canids run into the double support that you were mentioning earlier, simply because I feel like having double support makes it harder for those big explosive moments to happen that the Soul Torturers are having throughout this entire tournament. And it would be nice for them to run down that route rather than doing a passive type of route that we've seen from them in the past.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see what they ban. It looks like they're hovering mostly meta picks, debating between the Uther and the Genji for the Soul Torturers. Really liking the Zeratul ban for the RED Canids as well. You know, just a nod of respect to Zola after what he did to Tempo Storm. And Soul Torturers go with the Uther ban here. Very common as well.
So with the Dahaka taken, already RED Canids just saying, hey, we're here for the macro. Have a good side soak on the lanes there, but they give up a lot of the heroes that Soul Torturers for a long time were actually hovering here as potential bans. First of all, of course, Genji, and they've also been looking at that Abathur. Now, of course, when you have the Abathur into the Dahaka, you always need to be extremely careful here, but it could be to an extent where they just say, yeah, we're still totally fine with it. Abathur would have to play a bit more passive, but it's still an option.
Yep, the Genji Abathur would be something that, if they are comfortable running that combination together, would be a pretty good one too. Some other heroes that you could see are the Greymane and the Malfurion. It'll be most likely some combination of those.
Abathur Greymane? Typically, Soul Torturers have been run that Greymane, and now is the time to do it, but they move straight into Genji. Okay, so the Genji pickup.
That's good. I do like that power pick here. I think Abathur is actually extremely strong on Cursed Hollow. RED Canids can deal with it. They had the Dahaka. Last game between Tempo and Dignitas, I was actually surprised that Dignitas let the Abathur through because Dahaka was already banned. When Dahaka is banned in this patch, there's very limited ways to effectively deal with an Abathur. And you saw from that game, once the Abathur team is even Talontier, how difficult it is to deal with the Abathur Genji. And
even still, it's not an absolute solid science that Dahaka's gonna fully deal with an Abathur is the scary thing, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened to Falstad as a way to counter the Abathur? Is it mostly because Genji's on the field, there's too much die being available? Or
yeah, Genji, Zeratul, Greymane, you know, any of these heroes combined with Abathur, if I see a Falstad, I can delete him in about a second, and there's very little you can do about it.
Ooh, we're getting more Typhex variant, and I think that's one of the main ways you can go if you just want to be comfortable with the composition. We saw him and his team run in multiple times against MP Black and almost get a victory.
I mean, there's also the added point of Varian just being alright against the Genji here. The taunt is just fantastic. It's one of the things that happened when Genji started to have the first few plays within Heroes of the Storm, that everybody looked at it and was saying, okay, how do we treat this guy? Hypermobile, let's treat him like we would treat a Tracer, for example, a Zeratul, pick the Varian, go for the charge taunt, and then try to burst him away while he's vulnerable. If you add the Malfurion to the mix, or the added Tong from the Dahaka, you have a silence on top of that. So Genji has to play way more passive at this point. He needs to be very cautious about how he approaches the backline of the RED Canids.
I feel like this Li Ming ban has to be kind of the thing if Varian's on the other side now.
Yeah, that's definitely a good ban for Soul Torturers. I don't like the Sylvanas ban. Sylvanas is actually not that good against Abathur. All you have to do is play well, don't get snowballed on, and you saw what happened last game. I like the Li Ming ban better. For Red Canids, I would like to see a Cleanse ban or a Tyrael ban for the invulnerability. Really liking the Varian, like you said. It's almost a hard counter for Genji, Tracer, Illidan, these mobile heroes that count on Abathur. You're kind of like countering 2 heroes in one. Yeah. So yeah, I like where they're going with this. Red Canids says we're going to blow you up. We have the Dahaka to kind of manage the global aspect of it. So if you're going to blow them up, you know, ban something that stops them from being blown up.
And the #1 person there would probably be Malfurion, correct? Move into that route, get rid of the Malfurion.
Well, they
Malfurion's on that side,
it,
you're right. So they actually go for the ban on a Nubarak.
Yeah, that's why getting rid of the Li Ming is such a great choice here on the side of Soul Torturers. If you already have the Varian dashing in, Malfurion putting down the lawn, then you can simply follow up with that combo on the side of Li Ming, and that kills nearly everything that you have, unless you have an Uther on your mixer can throw down a Divine Shield. Since he's banned out already, your options are really limited. So Soul Torturers really with a good choice on the ban.
Right, and Nubarak, I forgot about that one actually. It's just such a strong meta pick. And Cocoon, even though it doesn't directly protect you, I mean, it kind of does. So very good ban there as well. But
so do you have to go the Cleanse route here? Move into the Rhaegar, for instance?
I think you need either Cleanse or Invulnerability. You know, I prefer both, but yep, there you go. Both of them.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the Tyrael, of course, again, Cursed Hollow. It's one of his best maps for sure. You have the Sanctification, if you don't go for a hyper-aggressive Judgment composition into the backline to get the value on the bosses whenever you fight there, especially in the late game. If you have that small timing window where with the Sanctification you can grab the boss or get a good fight, then you can really bring the pain to your opponent. On top of that, the 16, the Holy Ground, you zone out or you just split the opponent's team. Tyrael is fantastic on this map.
Can there be any focus onto the Rhaegar here then from Red Canids? Can they draft around the potential of just getting the Rhaegar as quickly as possible? What do you think?
They could, but I think in this setup, depending on what the burst damage now is going to be on the side of the Red Canids, as a Rhaegar player, you need to identify that. And you need to just look at this and say, if I die first, if they get to me, then we have a massive issue here. And that made it pretty dangerous now, because with Medivh all of a sudden in the mix, you might not have as much of the burst damage that you would have with a Li Ming or anything for the damage aspect, and also for wave play they have Gul'dan. But the big advantage of having the Medivh here is, first of all, you make Varian nearly unkillable. That's #1.
Yes.
And also, if you set that portal up into the backline and Varian goes through with the rest, that is a guaranteed taunt on one of the vulnerable targets. You just need to make sure that you somehow follow up with the rest of the damage.
Yeah, this is a interesting draft by Red Canids here. I don't dislike it. You know, after that Li Ming ban, it got tricky for them. What heroes do you pick that can really accomplish blow up without dying yourself when they have a Tyrael and a Genji with an Abathur hat? That limits your options. You know, you can't pick the Chromie or the Kel'Thas or something like that, because they can dive on you and kill you faster than you kill them too. So kind of like the Medivh pick, but it's going to be an execution heavy draft.
Muradin to round out the comp. What do you make of it?
Muradin allows them to dive in with the Genji if they ever do get into a fight where they're able to get through the Horrify and such. Suddenly we can have Soul Torturers get in and be aggressive and actually make things happen. So don't mind the Muradin pick whatsoever. It just really comes down to execution, as Fan was mentioning.
Yeah.
Is it easier for the Red Canids to pull this off? Typically you would think so with the Variant taunting to pull in, but playing around Medivh, if you're not experienced enough as a team, can be pretty difficult.
One of the things is also that Muradin, especially with the Abathur, I feel, can put a lot of pressure onto the Gul'dan. And once you are just putting Gul'dan under pressure, there's very little damage on the side of the Red Canids. So if Muradin really has the confidence to, with Abathur, just jump in, then Varian can go through those portals and jump the backline all day long. If they don't have the follow-up damage, it doesn't matter.
So what would occur in your thoughts if it was to go trade for trade here between these two? Like, if you see them both just diving onto the backlines, because I see this Genji Abathur on the side of Soul Torturers, and that looks mighty fearsome unless the most glorious of Horrifies actually lands.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I think Genji Abathur is just so scary.
Yeah.
Whenever, like, I have that draft for myself, I just feel so confident in it. It's just execution based. If you can be confident in your execution, it's so strong. So I kind of favor Soul Torturers a little bit, but, you know, they're going to have to put on a good display of Genji if that's going to happen.
Well, we're going to start with the predictions, starting with Trick and going down.
Soul Torturers. Going with them.
Okay.
Soul Torturers for me as well.
It's 2.
Yeah, got to go with the Soul Torturers.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gents. That was a pretty conclusive answer. Not too much more than needs to be said. As we check in with the chat now to see how you guys have voted as well. Pretty even with the Red Canids leading the charge there to start things off here for the next 2 series that we're going to be seeing them in. For now, though, let's head over to the commentary team as we have Jhow and Dread ready for Red Canids going up against Soul Torturers.
Well, Dreadnought, we seem to have 2 teams that are on a collision course in some form or another in Red Canids, and we're going to see if Soul Torturers can put out their composition to answer who's going to meet who in the middle.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting matchup, but here in the blue, we have God Dog on Abathur, Lolly playing the Genji, Zola on Tyrael, Hikari playing the Rhaegar, and Skrull on Muradin. I got to say, keep your eyes on Zola's Tyrael.
It's going to be fun to watch, but on the right side in red will be Hamtaro on Dahaka, Typhex on Varian, Vieira on Malfurion, Jay Shrite on Medivh, and Latho on Gul'dan.
I feel like our analysis desk really nailed the head on. Oh man, that was just hello English. No, they really had a great breakdown of these compositions. Red Canids, this is something we've seen from other teams here into this tournament, but just the complexity of working with a Medivh. Not just a Medivh player, everyone has to know how to work well with this hero if they're going to be successful.
It is going to be interesting to see if they can pull it off, because it is a high skill composition. They're just going to take the portal around, get a shortcut, and put this 4-man rotation. See if they can collapse onto this Rhaegar.
He's got the root. He's mounted up. There's no dismount. Oh, but not going to hit it soon enough. It's just got to keep track of those ganks here, because as we spike through the levels with the Loon Grace and some of the damage coming out here of Letho, it's going to be a lot more lethal. But we know Soul Torturers, they've got the Genji, they've got the Abathur, and really those guys are the ones that thrive in skirmishes.
They are continuing to zone him out. The Abathur coming in, providing a little bit of a shield. As you can see, already tapping there is Hikari, as he is being absolutely assaulted in this bottom lane. But in the middle, we've got Typhex getting that protection there from both his parry and from Medivh.
Yeah, the fact that Red Canids, though, with this 2-man on bottom, has so much pressure out is not looking good for Soul Torturers. Because, again, they focus on those skirmishes, looking for those ganks. And the fact that they aren't applying any pressure in that macro out of the wave clear, Gul'dan, even Malf went into Moonbird, they're doing a very good job into what is a solo Rhaegar. I mean, how often, I can tell you, I know how it feels. You hate being a solo support in a lane. You're like, I'll just stay, you just feel like you have no goal. You know, you're just like, I'm here for the experience, and I can't do anything about this front wall.
Well, they have rotated Zola and Lolly down, and we are going to see if they can help support this. It was really interesting because they sent Genji all the way top and then rotated him all the way bottom. That's a lot of lost time there. Spinning rotations. We've now hit the 2-minute mark. Siege camps have spawned. We're going to see, as I believe we're going to have both teams going for their appropriate siege camps.
Yeah, at level 1, we did see the agile dismount for Lolly, so like, kind of he can rotate a little bit faster, but no matter what, it's just a lot of time committed to Cursed Hollow. It is such a big map, one of the biggest maps we have here in Heroes of the Storm, but both teams backing out towards their respective giant camp, and I'm expecting this first tribute for where we find our first blood and all the action here in this game. Again, Soul Torturers, that is a circumstance in which they would thrive. And Red Canids, they're going to want to focus on the macro, keeping that Dahaka for its side. So.
And one of the more interesting things, Soul Torturers, the Abathur player, going with the global minds here, trying to keep vision, trying to make sure that you can see where they're coming from, or try and disrupt rotations as we get further into the battleground, playing around the tributes. And speaking of tributes, 10 seconds away from the first one, spawn in at the top.
So what do we see with rotations? The fact that these Giants are going to be an easy clear on the side of Soul Torturers is a bit of it's a breath of fresh air. Abathur is not very good at clearing those on his own, and now he has free reign over the bot lane as all the members of Red Canids have been transitioning upward, except for Medivh. He's getting the scout, and it looks like he's going to commit down to bottom lane. So Abathur doesn't have as much free soak, but now Red Canids is not going to have their Medivh.
Yeah, and that adds a lot of protection for them. As we can see, Skrull and Zola already diving that back line. Vieira is going to be the first to fall here. You can see just not the type of protection. You got to wonder if Medivh was there, would you have an out?
Hamtaro is now here to be able to join the fight, but being a member down, Nobody's going to be wanting to stop Hikari from this channel. First tribute very convincingly going off to Soul Torturers, but we found in the bottom lane, he's not going to get the pick. If he comes back, he's got an auto. Nope. And Jay Shrite, oh, he's in hot pursuit. God dog, you're not getting out of here. Oh,
he is considering it.
Tread lightly, young man. The worm is got your number.
He's daring him. He's
Tell me the last time you saw the Raven afraid of the worm.
I got a little backwards there. Must be one big worm.
Oh, man. Oh, that was awesome to see here. But now, Red Canids, they've got themselves the camp up here. They're going to get the night pressure. And again, Genji compositions, Tyrael compositions, they're typically struggling in the wave clear department. So they need to make sure that if Red Canids gets any pressure, proper timed with these mercenaries, it's going to be very difficult for them in the mid to later parts of this game.
You can definitely tell that they're definitely looking to be aggressive with this composition, especially with Murden we talked about. And the analyst talked about that as well, as where Murden dives in. We see Skullcracker again. We see the extra stab damage coming from Abathur. So they're definitely going to look to try and get back there and disrupt a lot of what's going on. As you can see, Skrull just going in, beating on anybody and everybody he can find as the portal does get Vieira out. And they turn their eyes onto Genji, get their first kill of the game.
Zola gets the dash out, but a beautiful drag now on to Skrull. That is one kill. Follow up onto the Eldruins. Now Zola finds his way out of here, but 2 members down. Abathur is getting the soak up on top. Soul Torturers has to feel good about this, but they are struggling here in the early game. But one thing to note, Abathur typically in the early game will lose front walls, will suffer in the experience department, and the fact that Soul Torturers, you know, they aren't that far behind is going to be a small victory, but it hasn't been very convincing. Their rotations, you know, it hasn't been nearly as clean as I expected here from Soul Torturers.
Yeah, you'd think you'd have something a little bit more decisive, but if we saw something from anything, it was last game, the minute level 10 hit with an Abathur composition. Things looked a lot scarier, and then 13 as well, with Abathur as well, that disruption on that back line. So we'll see, not quite out of reach just yet, but a slight experience lead so far for Red Canids, as we'll be waiting for the next tribute to spawn here soon.
The fact that the tributes are even is a nice moment here for Soul Torturers. Red Canids having a strong advantage here over the next tribute spawn, being so close to their side of the map and closing in here on that level 10. So probably going to be a sacrifice of the tribute, otherwise Soul Torturers would have to overcommit.
Easy channel here for Vieira. As you can see, all of the Abathur mines spread out in those lanes. We're going to keep an eye on those, but level 10, as you said, almost here. And Medivh always scouting. Every time I look at the minimap, I just see his icon near Abathur, and I'm thinking something's going to happen. He wants that.
Hamtaro is going to get traded on. Is he going to follow up there? If Abathur had followed up, that might have been enough at least to force a cooldown here out of Red Canids. But now Soul Torturers is finding their way up in experience. They're going to be able to pick up the 10, but that nice Dwarf Toss Stormbolt will be there, but I mean, it's the Haka. You know, that was essentially the cooldowns I was hoping, you know, wouldn't require the rotation out of Murden and a Stormbolt.
Could have been maybe a few seconds earlier, but as you can see, Dahaka able to heal himself up. Everything pretty standard across the board. No Haymaker at play today, Dreadnought.
I'm a little disappointed. You know, Noblesse put up a pretty solid argument for it, but there is a collapse here from Soul Torturers.
Yeah, instant horrify. Letho trying to walk away from this. Sanctification used a little bit early here, as you can see the cleanse as well, but Leyline is down.
Oh.
Anti-synergy though, Dread, with that Twilight.
The best way to put that one, my goodness, and that is going to set Red Canids so far behind in this fight, stacking Leyline and that Twilight Dream.
That was unfortunate to say the least. We are on curse point for Red Canids. They do have this fort to fall back to. We're going to see if Soul Torturers can hold on for the moment.
No Sanctification, nor is there a clone here for this fight. Only Ancestral and the Avatar. This is crucial.
They're going in. Hamtaro, he does get the drag on to Skrull, but he's able to heal up for the moment. Typex trying to look for the kill. We
Zola,
get the first
no mana.
On to Murden.
Zola, no mana. They're going to all go through the portal at once. Hikari actually splitting from the team, but conveniently with his level 1 talent moving at mounted speed, he makes his way out of here. But we find ourselves with a Red Canid curse here, J-How.
First time of the game, and we're going to see exactly what they can do with it. Dahaka finds himself that juicy worm. Who cares if it's the Raven?
The dinosaur is not afraid. The Raven may fear you, but in fact, the dinosaur fears no one. Hamtaro getting, or a hamster, I guess. I don't know. Either way, Hamtaro picking up the kill, securing Red Canids an entire level lead at this stage of the game. And I have to say, with the Dahaka having a global during the curse and losing the Abathur for some potential side soak in this time is a big setback for Red Canids. but so is losing Hamtaro.
Yeah, that's unfortunate there. A little bit of overextension, had no global to get away, and as you can see, the amount of pressure plus an Abathur hat, just too much to deal with. Middle fort, however, does go down on the side of Soul Torturers, so Red Canids does get a little bit out of that, and again, they do have that just over 1 level lead.
Yeah, a double fort curse is got to be what you consider a good curse overall. And the fact that now we see Red Canids that they have cycled through mid and bottom, they're rotating up to top. This is essentially 101 of how to play Curse Hollow when you have a curse, because they're ending on the top box, or on the top fort. Why do you want to end on the top fort? Because it's right next to your boss. The reason you want to start the boss directly after is it forces Soul Torturers to then respond and end up making theirs. Now, Red Canids is about 20 to 30 seconds behind if that was the game plan. So now if they want to make that happen, they have to understand Soul Torturers has complete understanding of what they were looking to make happen.
I think one of the good things that will also allow them to keep an eye on that is we see Typhex using that, and the global mines allow you to keep that vision on there. I think that's one saving grace of the side of Soul Torturers. It was cleared, however, by Varian. You got to imagine another one will take its place soon.
Yeah, it's going to be essentially just always there. You know, it's very difficult once you get that level 4 talent, unless Abathur is just flat spamming his mines, which at this point in the time, it's very unlikely that's going to be the case. You know, bosses and tributes are the win conditions, and that is where you want to sacrifice those resources. But Soul Torturers, it's been a weird game for them. Honestly, it has been very strange and almost uncharacteristic out of their gameplay, especially with such an aggressive and it is high execution, but straightforward team composition. It seems like they have not totally had a full grasp, at least not displayed it yet.
There's the taunt in the roots, the diminished healing there, not able to get the proper follow-up. You know, when we saw the draft, I almost wondered, would Gul'dan be enough follow-up for this team? We are only 19 stacks into Master's Touch, so they're just missing a lot of pop. And as you said, the aggressive nature of Soul Torturers with this composition, they have so much transference now from the Abathur symbiote, which will heal them up for each enemy hit. You got to think that at some point, Soul Torturers is going to pull the trigger and try and force a fight and get to that back line.
I mean, I've seen Soul Torturers play absolutely amazing and have ridiculous comebacks here on Curse Hollow. I mean, they displayed it up against Tempo Storm. You know, they just need you to make one major mistake into the late game, and they're very comfortable finding a way to convert that back into their favor. But as the 16 talent tier close in for Red Canids, if that opportunity does exist, it is a long way away from now. I mean, this has got to be Soul Torturers need to play extremely offensive here pre-16, or they just need to flat sacrifice this tribute.
Yeah, and it's not that detrimental if you give up that tribute, because right now, Red Canids sitting on 0, but we get the taunt, the cleanse instantly onto Scroll, and now this could be the aggressive approach.
Go in.
The symbiote is going to allow the heal, plus you have healing static as well. So
Zola? They're just diving. They're just going to go. At least they're getting the zone out, but Jay Shrite should be able to get a delay. He does get... Oh, man. Missing the Q is not going to be able to get the delay, and Soul Torturers, what looked like a very risky attempt to secure a tribute that they shouldn't have gotten. One skill shot missed, and it's going to go over to them.
Dahaka never came down. Never came down. He was trying to soak 16 before they could get through it. They missed the delay and therefore missed an opportunity. But Zola, that Eldruin's in a weird spot. The taunt is on.
Nice root. That was very well done. Perfect. Forcing the Sanctification. He's still not going to make it out here, I don't believe. Not with the portal. There's one Q. 3, 2, 1. There he goes. His Q's off cooldown again, by the way. For those who don't know, when you take Heroic Reforging, if you hit one target, by the last frame of your Q coming off of cooldown, if you reactivate it, you immediately have your next Q. It is just almost directly afterwards. So it's 100% uptime if you hit one target and have this talent.
The jukes.
The jukes are real. It's one part of the reason everybody sees that talent and they think, oh, more holy grounds. But nobody ever thinks about the insane, you know, what that does to Tyrael in terms of his ability to initiate with his team always being on the same page. Because if that cooldown remains naturally at that long duration, you throw it out once and miss, you never have a team fight.
Well, Soul Torturers recognizes the tribute at the top right this time, not necessarily in a safer zone for them at the bottom left. They don't have 16. They're going to give it up. But the boss here, again, was this sniffed out? Will they be willing to engage without 16?
Holy ground will be here if 16 can be achieved for Soul Torturers. Abathur is in body-soaking range. He's going to drop the clone. You see Zola, he's so hoping for it, but that means nobody is soaking for the 16. Abathur's body is not getting the soak, so maybe they will not get it. Twilight Dream goes down, and Morden is already dead.
You got to think that that was a mistake there, and Kotdog is deep in the backside on that clone, not able to do much of anything, and that is going to be a free boss for Red Canids. A slight misplay there. Dread, I mean, that Abathur has to try and remain in body soaking range before that moment.
He does. You can understand, though, the panic. You see your opponents hit the boss, and you think, there's no way trickle-down experience does not help me here. I will be able to hit that. And if you miscalculate, like we saw, you can see what that costs a team. Soul Torturers. Now, a boss pressuring up on top. They're attending towards that. Red Canids gets the boss up onto bottom. They've got 2 tribute advantage. By the time this tribute is, boss is responded to by Soul Torturers, Red Canids has more pressure off the map. They can get Knights, Giants, and the tribute will be up. The map is painted so red at this point. Soul Torturers had no way to this tribute without Red Canids knowing exactly what they are.
It's amazing what one minor mistake can lead to in terms of a long-term effect, and I think that's where we're at now. Zola not able to get his Ultra Runs down in time. No holy ground.
I know that was the closest thing to being one of the biggest moments in this entire game, even though it did not look that impact, because my goodness, if that had been half a second earlier, that would have been Zola's boss. Scroll looking to get the flank portal down. Red Canids wants this.
Nice cleanse there onto Zola, who's trying to return some of that damage. Now Scroll diving that back line. Good ley line in return. We're looking for the Twilight Dream.
But the Sanctification is going to be there, Jay-How. They just don't have the tools.
They don't. Ice Block is going to be used, but Malfurion in a very compromised position. The portal, Typex not able to get there because of the stun. Because of the holy ground, it's going to keep Typex from going through. Nicely done there. Soul Torturers picks up 2 kills.
Soul Torturers gets the kill, but the tribute is still up on top. Abathur has not made his rotation yet, but Dahaka actually burrowed and has not shown himself in transition yet, so they don't know he's up in the party shrub. They ignore the boss knowing that it is too easy to deal with. They're going to be comfortable now, but this tribute is a tough moment now here for Red Canids.
Just the lack of synergy. We saw a Horrify go off around the same time. The ley line, we've seen that with the Twilight Dream, but the Sanctification in response, because there is a windup on that, it allows the Sanctification an opportunity to go down, and Red Canids making mistakes. There's no other way to look at it.
Red Canids struggling, and Zola forcing the hand with those holy grounds. Now that has come online, you see the abuse around the Medivh pickup here, but 45 seconds remain here on the curse. 20, and the rest of the experience is going to swing heavily towards Soul Torturers because of this curse. Abathur alone can amplify your experience just exponentially, it feels like, in a lot of these games. So what does Soul Torturers do with the window? That's 1-4, yes, at front wall. But this is 16 minutes into the game here, Jay-How. I want to see keeps. I want to see at least pressure.
I think they're afraid to hard engage. They thought they could get as much experience. They get the keep wall, they got the middle 4, but it's not enough to get 20, and I think that they're just so afraid to engage. I mean, this has been such a back and forth battle. I just think the confidence might not have been there on that top when they have the poke potential, they have the disengage potential with their mobility. I'm surprised they weren't at least a little bit more aggressive to at least see what they could squeeze out of.
Everybody from the beginning of this draft, it felt like a lot of it came down to, can Red Canids actually run such a difficult composition here with the Medivh, with the, with the variant and the taunts, and I just feel like Soul Torturers hasn't even allowed us to find the answer to that question, because half the game feels as if they're just running away from their opponents. That's going to be interrupted here, and that is a dead Dahaka.
That pretty well played there. Soul Torturers seems to be finding their stride here late game. Things starting to go their way. 6 kills to 5. No keeps down, however, despite 2 bosses picked up for Red Canids. Now, this is an opportunity where we saw during the curse. I'd love to see them grab the siege camp and at least try and do something. Whether it's siege up on that bottom keep wall to open up a win condition later for the respawn on the bottom boss. It seems like they're doing none of that.
Yeah, they're playing safe. You can tell Soul Torturers something mentally right now is got to him. Whether it be this game, whether it be before this game, I have no clue. But either way, this does feel like they have taken a step back, especially for such an offensive composition like they have.
That bottom keep wall, you just open it up a little bit, soften it up to make that boss push, that potential boss push later, be far more threatening, but we've got a Medivh portal at least threatening Soul Torturers enough to walk away.
In 15 seconds, there's going to be the boss on the upper half of the map spawns. There is a roughly, I mean, it's about 50-second difference between the 2 bosses here. That is going to be a moment where Red Canids can feign with Dahaka somewhere else on the map, because Genji and Abathur would the only thing that can stop them. Abathur loses that 1v1 all day. Genji would have to rotate. if it spawns on the other side of the map, essentially Red Canids can just commit to that and say Soul Torturers, you either deal with the boss or we get the curse.
They're jumping
but
over
they get this pick.
though.
They got
nice Horrify.
He's got
the cleanse onto Genji though.
He needs the cleanse, and not having that up, I don't think he can make it out. The portal, is that enough?
Vieira under assault, ice block is there, the keep returning fire, but you can see the deflection, that is the clone. It is okay to go down as it's drawing all the fire. They've dove under the keep.
Hamtaro, he's on the back line, he missed the drag, he popped the adaptation with no value, the holy ground getting the peel, but here is the portal.
They're going in, they're gonna see if they can get back on it as the ley line seal is there. Medivh is cheating right now, and Skrull is diving the back line, but you can see the Twilight Dream has silenced multiple members, and this fight rages on.
Now, Ancestral does land. Hamtaro falls so very low. The taunt is actually used. Drag you in, taunt you the other way, but Hamtaro is now down. Gul'dan actually dies here too. Typhex gets holy ground, zoned away, and now we find Soul Torturers the first keep of the game. Can Medivh and Malfurion stop this? I do not think so.
I don't think so either, as we've got 5 members of Soul Torturers on the court. Medivh doing everything he can to defend. The shields are falling, and Soul Torturers is putting the pressure on. Dreadnought, a back and forth game here. Soul Torturers taking game number 1.
Patient play coming out from the Soul Torturers from beginning to end. Whether it be to a fault, it does not matter because they come out with the W at the end of the day. They are going to take game number 1 here versus Red Canids.
I love the recognition, though. We had bottom lane, the pick on Dahaka, the top pick. I mean, they recognized when they could be aggressive. You just kind of thought they'd do it more.
They were just, yeah, exactly. It felt like with the skirmishing that has into the early game, I mean, they definitely understood the only way we win this game, focus on the picks, try and catch Red Canids out, and they got, every time they try to make it happen, it feels like they made it a reality.
It was. I think it was very nicely done there on the side of Soul Torturers. A back and forth game, to say the least. A few minor slip-ups, but in the end, like we said, 9 kills to 5 in favor of Soul Torturers. Not too shabby.
Yeah, and, you know, shout out to Red Canids in that game because, to be frank, when I saw them draft this competition, I was like, I do not know if the synergy is going to be here, but to have control over the beginning half of the game so effectively, I mean, that's nothing to laugh at.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, there was a lot that went on there, some good, some bad, but either way, we're going to have it broken down by our analysis crew led by Clarence.
Thank you very much indeed. 1-0 to Soul Torturers, and that last fight was ballistic. I loved watching that. Not only Vieira's brilliant escape at the beginning of it, the attempt at the turnaround, and then the turnaround of the turnaround. It was really cool.
It was a really cool back and forth that we saw there, and Murden with a massive impact in that last fight in particular. That guy just didn't die.
Genji came in with the final swing, though. We were sitting there, actually, right there in the front. We're like, no one's dying. No one's dying. No one's going to die. And then suddenly, Genji, 1 kill, 2 kills, 3 kills. First off, kudos to both teams in that entire match, straight up. Early game from the Red Canids, I was much more impressed than I thought they would be with that composition. Playing incredibly well, getting a nice early lead. Even at a point where Hamtaro got a kill on Abathur, that was quite impressive. But Soul Torturers came in and finished the game, so solid play by them.
Exciting game throughout here, Fan. I believe you do have something to show us from that game.
Yeah, so we have one of the fights. Let's take a look at this replay here, and the execution is the big story about this fight. So you see Red Canids, they go on the Tyrael here, if we could pause right here. So right when they taunt the Tyrael, notice what Skrull on the Muradin does, right? Skrull immediately jumps in, and this is an important concept because this is something that not even like all pro players understand that well. It's like when one of your teammates gets gone on, they're using cooldowns on your teammates. So if you're a tank like Muradin, you should be peeling. So I love the fact that when they went in, Skrull went in here. Even though he's technically like 1 versus 5 in this area, he knows they just used all their offensive cooldowns on the Tyrael and he wants to peel for them. So good awareness there. If we play on here, we see the fight start to emerge. So I want to pause right here again. So right there you see the animations just a little bit stacked. You see the leyline seal. The leyline seal comes here and hits a lot of people, but at the same time the Horrify is stacked on top of the leyline seal, essentially wasting the Horrify. And the other thing I want to draw notice to is look at the Tyrael. So the Tyrael sorted in, and you have to be aware of his animations during these team fights. He was in the middle of synced animation. He was a millisecond from sticking his sword into the ground, and you can see that animation, but they didn't quite catch that animation. So when that animation happens, that means synced is going off right here in about a millisecond, and you can see the the, you know, the bar on top of him. But you see Vieira here, he doesn't notice. He walks into the center of the enemy team, gets ready for the big Twilight Dream, but he didn't notice Synced already was precast. So there was no channel time out of the, you know, out of the ley line. So the Twilight Dream gets wasted too, the Horrify gets wasted, and the ley line gets wasted. But all of the ultimates were cast at, you know, almost the right time. If they were just a second faster or slower, it would have been really good. So you can really see where Red Canids just lacks a little bit on the execution, but if they just get a little bit more experience, this could be a scary team.
You make a really good point with that replay and highlighting just these small, tiny cooldowns that they had here, because it's a bit heartbreaking to me to see their team lose that game. Because when we looked at the draft and we were talking about the game, we were heading into the series, I said that I think that Soul Torturers win, and they did. But with how the game went, I was very impressed. I looked at this and was just like, okay, going up against Soul Torturers, Red Canids played much better than I expected them to. And you could really argue that this was their game to lose. And then in the end, it's one team fight that turns everything, where finally the synergy is there for Soul Torturers. So as much as I'm happy for the Taiwanese team, it's a bit heartbreaking to see that no matter how good they play and how well they synergize, it's always just that tiny little bit that doesn't get them the win on the side of the LATAM team.
It feels like both teams have paired up extremely well to the point where they're pushing each other quite hard.
I mean, that game came down to milliseconds, as fan showed. I mean, that's a different story. What if that Twilight Dream connects, if the sanification actually wasn't interrupted, and suddenly we have 3 people killed off, the Horrify doesn't miss out. There's so many little things that happened here.
And that fight was a keep.
Yeah,
that means keep immediately.
Yeah, that's right. Game over right away. You push in, you get Medivh Portal, you just go straight for the keep, kill it off, and go straight to the core. So, yeah, it's all about the smallest things here. And now going into game number 2, you're on Towers of Doom, you're feeling a little bit deflated, but you got to pick yourself up. This team, the last 4 days here, has experienced nothing but losses, and getting a win would be something that they could be happy about.
Turns out I was correct about 20 minutes ago. It is going to be Towers of Doom.